Tuesday, everybody. What is it? Happy Testicle Tuesday. See, I forgot that part of it.
Holy
I
Testicle
was not.
Tuesday.
That's a Testicle Tuesday. I was not prepared, but now I am. So happy Testicle Tuesday, everybody. Of course, we were doing this on Monday nights, but because of Memorial Day, and I hope everybody, had a long weekend there. But tonight on the Buzz, we're going to be answering your fantasy football questions, and we're also going to talk about all the QB moves that happened during the offseason, and there were a lot, and not just a lot in number, but a lot in quality. Say hello to my partners. We've got Cyclop. We've got 2020. Guys, say hello.
What's going on? Apologize for the shirt. This I was going to play pickleball this evening, so not taking anyone to the gun show, but excited about a fun show tonight.
No gun show, just
might be too soon for the gun show. But anyway, we're hoping to have a good show tonight, and there's some exciting things happening this week. And so let's get to it.
Yeah, and we're introducing a fun new segment, and we're excited about.
Yeah, so what we did, we talked about Mount Rushmores. We talked, the best of the best, and it doesn't have to be in any certain order, right? It could be any order you want it to be in. It's just that they just have to represent. And last week we talked about ice cream novelties, I guess is the term. Tonight we're going to talk about what, Keith? This is your night to shine.
Yes, tonight it's going to be the all-time Mount Rushmore of one-hit wonders. One of the most unique and idyllic things in music. It's very interesting, but the one-hit wonder. We'll talk about the best of the best, the Mount Rushmore of them.
Well, let's start talking about that real quick. Now, one-hit wonders, like can a band have two hits or
yes, because
that really just takes it right out.
Yeah. So here's the deal. I mean, generally,
a hit is going to be something in like a top 40, top 100 on the Billboard,
exactly,
something like that.
And then you've never heard, and then you never hear of them again.
Right. So a perfect example, and to me, probably the iconic one of the top three ever is Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. I mean, that song is one of the most. It's the first ever rap song to go number one. It is not Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight. So, I mean, it was iconic. Let's just be honest. And, Ice did have one other song. It was like almost, it was weird that, and it was a little whatever, but that is,
but it wasn't a hit.
It wasn't a hit. So that is like,
okay, where did it ever make the top 40?
Ice Baby? It was one of it broke.
No, not
record.
Ice Baby.
Oh, the other one? No. The second song I don't think did. No.
Okay, so it's a one-hit one. Wasn't there a whole movie made out of it with Tom Hanks?
What's that?
One-hit wonders. It was
the Wonders. That Thing You Do. Right.
That Thing You Do. Right.
Right. The Wonders. They were perfect one-hit wonders, but of course we're talking real life.
What's the song? I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Okay. Tubba Thumpkin, Chumbawamba. Yep. One-hit wonder. Big. Yep.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that. But okay, so does that go on to Mount Rushmore? Because
yes,
everybody knows that.
As a matter of fact, under the Rolling Stone top 10 one-hit wonders, that was up there. Tubba Thumpkin, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another one, and I'm going to be very impressed if you could tell me the name of the band that sang this. And this is a huge one-hit wonder, and that's interesting because it involves Cyclops' mom's name here. But Come On, Eileen.
Dexy's Midnight.
No, I wasn't saying it like that. I mean, but it's just your mom's name. I wasn't being innuendo there.
Yeah, it's Dexy Midnight Runners.
Dexy Midnight Runners, exactly. Yep. Very good. Yep.
And I actually knew that. It's not just because I was looking up because this was the category for tonight, but I actually have known that because it has my mom's name in it. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's three pretty good ones right there.
I'd love to hear what everyone else has. Now, our new format here on Restream, if anybody wants to comment in YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter Live, go ahead and make whatever comments. They appear right here on the screen. We talk about it. You can make comments about Mount Rushmore, one-hit wonders. You can ask fantasy football questions, and we will answer them. As long as you ask between 8 and 9, we will get to your question.
Exactly.
And hopefully lead you in the right direction. And Javi is starting out the night strong. J.K. Dobbins or Etienne keeper.
As a keeper.
Wow.
So let me just give you my thoughts real quick while you guys think about this. I'm kind of staying away from Baltimore as long as Lamar Jackson is the running back on that team. That doesn't mean that he's not going to have games. J.K. Dobbins is going to have games, but they still got Gus Edwards. I mean, this is not a team that's built around J.K. Dobbins, for example. And I understand it's for a keeper, and Etienne, because he was hurt, we don't know what he can do.
Right.
And
well, that
team.
And with Etienne getting hurt, Robinson had his second year to shine, which he really did. I mean, I would ask you is there a third possibility that you have as a keeper? Because I don't love either of them. Commission's right. No running back is going to kill it in Baltimore. They want Dobbins. In Baltimore, they want Dobbins to be the guy. They drafted him high. There's no question. But off the injury in Baltimore,
they drafted Etienne high too. I mean,
they did, and I agree.
They were all about him until he got hurt, and of course that was a different coach.
Well,
you don't know
coincidentally,
exactly what's going to go on there.
You know, when I was younger, back in the 90s, I collected a lot of football cards. I was big into that world. And every once in a while, I'm at a store. If I see some packs, I might pick up a pack just for fun and open it up. And I did that the other day, and I actually got this card, which is an Etienne rookie card, but it's called Sweaters, and it's got like a little sweater here. And look how thick this thing is.
Wow.
So I don't know what the value of this card is, but I'm keeping it. So that's my Etienne keeper. But I think we need to take a look at him during.
I think you got to go with. I think you have to go with Etienne here, just because of that card.
Well, I got this, and I put it in plastic already. It's a Jamar Chase rookie.
Cam Newton.
Jamar Chase rookie. So, but we should do some pack openings during the show sometime.
I think that's awesome. But you know something? I'm just so intrigued by this. I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but if first I'm curious, Allen Robinson, what round keeper that would be? If that is somehow late round, which I doubt it is, but if that's like eighth round or later,
probably not though, because he was probably taken early last year.
Right. I wouldn't. I mean, if that's tell me what round you'd have to give up, because of the three, I like Robinson as the second guy with Matt Stafford throwing 5,000 yards and 44 touchdowns. I like Robinson here as your keeper. I just don't know what round you're looking at.
Yeah, that's a tough one because either one of these guys, to me, Dobbins or Etienne, could be serviceable this year. Dobbins was doing well until he got injured, and yeah, like the commish said, when you have your running back is the second best running back on the team, that's an issue,
right?
But you got to figure that they are going to be moving more towards getting Lamar not running as much.
Well, they also signed Mike Davis from Atlanta. But my point is that they went out and they were not convinced that J.K. Dobbins is the guy. They have Gus Edwards, who, by the way, has looked good, right? When he's been
over
in
5
there.
yards a carry.
He's a good one. So you don't have to give up a round; you just keep them. I got to tell you, I like Allen Robinson. I would take Robinson. I think he is a baller. He has not slipped at all. He was just subject to a very bad quarterback and passing scheme in Chicago. With Matt Stafford throwing probably again for 5,000 yards and somewhere around the 40 touchdowns with no Robert Woods and who knows OBJ. I'd keep Robinson of these three.
Here's my question is, who are your other two that you are keeping? Is it a running back? Is it a wide receiver? Who are you keeping? And then it seems out of these three, you need to keep one of them.
Yeah, I have a feeling the other two are no-brainers. If you could keep any three you want.
Yeah, but what position are they is my question. Yeah, Fournette and Metcalf. Yeah, okay, so you have 1 and 1, so this is really a third.
Yeah. Although Metcalf, Fournette definitely, and I love Metcalf. I just get worried with who's throwing the ball now, Drew Lock. But
he said it. I know it's early, but right, and it is early, but so we're answering that question now. But I really want to answer that question at the end of preseason. and for several reasons. Obviously, we need to see how Etienne is going to fit into that offense. Also, we need to understand the impact of wide receivers in general,
right,
versus running backs. Who's available? You know, are the Jaguars going to use Etienne as their third down back? You know, we don't know. These are the kind of questions that we're going to get answered as the season goes on. So, of course, Javi, keep listening. We really do appreciate you listening and commenting. And if you have any other questions, let us know. In the meantime, guys, we're going to jump into quarterbacks because there were a lot. Steve Scott says, "What's up, fellas? How you doing?"
Happy birthday, couple days.
Can I bring
something up before we get into quarterbacks? Okay, it's the off season, right? We're 100 days now from opening day, I believe.
Yep.
Is what it is.
Yep.
And you can't buy this kind of press, right? You for a lot of people, basketball season's over, hockey season's over, baseball is, not even into the summer yet. And what do we get? We get Tommy Pham smacking Josh Peterson about a fantasy football incident from last season that is now carried over. I mean, how awesome is that?
Wasn't he 4 games?
I mean,
yeah. The funny thing is, he was upset. Tommy Pham was upset at Josh Peterson for doing something that we all have done, that we all have been accused of, that we all have had text fights about, which is taking somebody who is out and putting them on your IR. It wasn't even somebody that was doubtful or questionable. It was somebody who was out. And Josh Peterson put them on his IR, and they had Tommy Pham had a problem with it because he wasn't on the NFL IR. And Josh Peterson, it was just like, look, the rules say I can do it. But then he goes ahead and he makes fun of the San Diego Padre team, which Tommy Pham was a part of. And that happened a long time ago. And when Tommy Pham saw him, it was just
he Will Smith them.
He Will Smith them.
Awesome.
He did.
But still, I mean, we've all had these confrontations. There's been people in our league who are on this podcast right now that didn't talk
for 6 months.
6
months to a year.
Between 6 months and a year.
It was the best 6 months of my life.
What's that?
It was the best 6 months of my life.
So, man, fantasy football, it definitely will have that kind of impact on you, especially when you got a lot of testosterone and steroids flowing through your body.
Yes,
but
that was awesome, though. Just that came up and that happened was pretty cool. And it wasn't.
I want to know who was on his team, and the fact that it was a professional players league.
Right. And how much was that league
for?
Cool.
Yeah.
That was probably, it could be $10,000
$100,000 league.
Yeah.
Right. You don't know.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, I thought that was awesome.
You brought that up. I had forgotten about
that. It's interesting
to
think if they might ever start controlling that. If there's serious money involved and football players are doing fantasy football, if they might actually still control that because there's serious money in it.
Well, there can be. For a long, we've had discussions about this.
Oh, we got a call coming in.
Here we go.
Thanks for calling the Buzz. How are you tonight?
I'm good. It's y'all's old pal, number one fan, Kenneth here.
Hey, Kenneth. How are you tonight?
What's up, Kenneth?
I'm doing pretty good. Always good to talk with you guys.
Same here.
I know y'all usually give me the honor of having my question of the night.
Okay, what is your question tonight?
I had heard word that the Tampa Bay Bucks have reached a deal with ex-Bear Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks, I mean. I wanted to get y'all's take in regards to that.
The rich get richer? I mean...
Can you repeat that?
Okay, so, I don't know if you heard that. So today, Akeem Hicks was picked up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Right. Former third-round draft pick of the New Orleans Saints, and just a big guy who plugs the middle. His best days were back in, the mid-10s. I don't know what you even call that. Right. It was around 2015, 2016 were his best years. it's not going to have fantasy impact. If you were going to pick up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, for example,
right.
you're going to pick them up regardless of Hicks.
Right.
But that line, if he does end up starting, is just going to be immovable with
Yeah,
Vita Vea and Akeem Hicks. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous.
I mean, they have pretty good track history with other old guys on their team at the moment.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I believe the Dolphins might have brought him in for a look, and take care, Kenneth. The Dolphins brought him in for a look, and I don't believe they signed him. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a difference maker, but
it gives them depth at the nose.
Yeah, and it's
Right.
defense, which we'll get into much later in the preseason.
All right, so
Thanks
let's
for the
do
talk,
this.
Kenneth.
Let's do this, guys. I want to jump into this quarterbacks thing because it has been an unreal offseason, especially with quarterbacks. And we've got Russell Wilson, one of the league's top quarterbacks, and no one can fight me on that. Russell Wilson goes to the Denver Broncos, and they trade Drew Lock back over to the Seattle Seahawks. So the question is, not necessarily are the Broncos going to be better, but what happens to Russell Wilson's fantasy value? Does it go up or down? And Keith, what do you say on this?
This guy he's I don't want to say he's underrated because he's always a top 10, 12 pick at quarterback, and he's won Super Bowls. I mean, he's unbelievable. His quarterback ratings. This is his QBR for the last 4 years. 103.1, 105.1, 110.9. His worst quarterback rating in his career was 92.6. The guy's unbelievable. And my point of that is, it's not like he's going to, I don't know, I want to say Cleveland. I know they have Amari Cooper. He's going to a team that actually has a very good receiving core. Is it, Lockett and DK Metcalf? No. But Cortland Sutton, before he had his injury in 20, had a fantastic 2019. And Jerry Jeudy is no slouch either, who caught balls from one of our favorite quarterbacks, right? So he's got Noah Fant, who is one of the better tight ends in football. So I think Russell Wilson, I think they're going to I see them letting Russ cook. I really do. They have a strong running game. I don't think you're going to see much of a regression in his numbers.
Well, hold on. Time out. Noah Fant got traded. That was part of the Drew Lock trade. It was Drew Lock and
you're right.
Noah Fant to the Seahawks. They've got I can't pronounce the guy's name.
Go Business. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. You're right. So and either way, something in his career, Russell Wilson has never been a big tight end guy anyway, ever. He is an outside receiver, slot guy, and that's what he has in Cortland Sutton and Jeudy. And I even really like Tim Patrick.
So answer the question.
I don't think you're going to see much of a regression. I really don't. He's a smart, athletic quarterback that gets the ball out. He throws a pretty pass. I don't really see much of a regression because he's got the talent around him.
But weren't a lot of Wilson's points on bombs and long throws and touchdowns to Lockett and to Metcalf? I mean, I'm not saying that Sutton isn't good. I'm not saying that Jerry Jeudy isn't good. I'm just saying, it took a few years to develop that chemistry between them. And again, I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. Don't get me wrong. And I think he's going to turn that franchise around, whether it's next year or in a few years. And I think it was a good trade for them. I just don't know if we're talking fantasy, whether or not I would have had Wilson in the same spot this year that I had him in last year. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Metcalf is a freak of nature, and yes, he's got a very high yards per average, one of the highest in the league. And the question is it the receivers that were making that possible? Metcalf is a big, fast guy. Lockett isn't particularly big. I think that's just a function of Russell Wilson has probably one of the 3 best long balls in football. And I don't
the old question, right? Did the quarterback make the receiver, or did the receiver make the quarterback?
Yeah. And I'm saying, I don't think that's here. And I think what he's got in Sutton and Jeudy and Patrick, I don't really think there's going to be much of a regression. I just think Russell Wilson is that good. And I think he makes receivers. I really do. And he's got some good ones there.
Russell Wilson has been incredibly steady over his career. 16 games started, except for last year where he started 14 out of 17. So he missed a couple games last year. But last year was a weird year in Seattle.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of Russell Wilson's history seems to be over the past few years, he would lock in on a receiver. And it would be like Lockett would have a huge game one week, and then Metcalf would have a huge game the next week, right? And it drove fantasy players crazy because then they'd be, oh, now it's Metcalf, and then the next week it would be Lockett, and the next week it would be the tight end or whatever it was. He would, it was always switching. As far as fantasy value, I don't think they didn't bring him in there to hand the ball off, a ton. They brought him in there because they know that he can lead a team and they could go get points. Now, Denver has a good defense, which, makes it where he could be more of a game manager. But everything out of the camp right now has been that he has looked amazing. The receivers, what?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, the receivers love him, right? Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's Russell Wilson. This guy's a proven commodity in the NFL.
Two things. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I'm sorry, Cyclops. Go ahead, man.
Stop apologizing. If you're going to talk over somebody, take authority and do it.
No, he stopped. I thought he was done. Go ahead, man.
I'm already scared of you. You're right out of the white van with that shirt. So,
oh my God.
No, but he's got receivers if they're healthy. I mean, you're looking at a team with some really good value on the field to get the ball to, for sure.
So two things of perspective. I don't just throw things out there, but I want to really validate why I don't think he's going to have much of regression. First of all, and this is big, look at the division he's playing in. This is a scoring division. You got Kansas City, San Diego, and Oakland last year. Derek Carr was airing it out. So there's going to be some
That's your second mistake tonight, but it's okay.
What are you talking about?
You said San Diego.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. The Chargers. I apologize.
Yeah.
So the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Chiefs. Three explosive offenses that are going to be, very, I would say very high scoring games. So you're going to have to see some airing out. That's number one. But now we're talking about, is it the quarterback or the receiver? Well, Metcalf's only been there for 3 years. And Lockett wasn't there in his earliest days. It was like Doug Baldwin. So if his yards per average last year, he's always been one of the top, 7.8. But his yards per average going back to the beginning of his career, 7.9, 8.2, 7.7, 8.3, completely independent of the receiver. The guy just throws deep. He takes the stabs. He creates time because he can run around in and outside the pocket and get the ball downfield while his receivers are making moves. So I don't think it's a function of Metcalf and Lockett. That's his game. He's a little bit of that Roethlisberger.
Those guys are really good receivers.
He those are very and I love Sutton and Judy. So I don't think Russell Wilson has lost a step. I don't see much of a regression from him.
All right. Well, Steve, our buddy Steve, our good friend Steve says Tua is going to surprise us one way or another. I'm thinking he's going to kill it, but if he doesn't, he will be done. I think that's a very true statement. I think this is his prove it year, prove it or lose it. And I know we're talking about quarterback moves over the offseason, but everything that the Dolphins did this offseason was to help Tua. I don't know if it was to help Tua, but it will help Tua. Yeah. Right? So I agree, and I think he's going to surprise not just us. I'm not going to be surprised because I've been part of Tua-non for a while, but it's the people who have been doubting Tua for quite some time. I think they're going to say, oh, wait a second, this is the Tua from Alabama that everybody saw. I had seen some clip of his stance, his throwing stance from the beginning of last year to what he's doing in training camp, and it's completely different because his hip is completely healed now. So he's going back to his roots, and he's being able to throw and play the way he did in Alabama. I mean, picture taking everything everybody is saying about Tua right now. Do you think he would have even been drafted, let alone in the first round? If Dolphins didn't take him, and we can have this discussion about Herbert versus Tua, which I'm not getting into, but the point is, if the Dolphins didn't take him in the first round, somebody else was going to.
Right.
Whether it was at 10, 15, it doesn't matter. But the point is to suggest that all of a sudden Tua forgot how to play football or can't throw a football. That's just ignorance. There's no two ways about it. I mean, it could be hate, but I like to think it's just ignorant.
The bottom line is
he's been 13-8 in the 21 games that he played. And I know some of that was an opportunistic defense, and this is behind the worst offensive line in football. But I do agree, Steve. There was no hotter quarterback seat than QB1 in Miami right now. But I agree. I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong, and some of us right.
All right. So talking about free agents, Brad, you're going to talk to us about somebody whose fantasy value has got to go up, right? Because there's no other direction for it to go. And that is the Colts trade for Matt Ryan. The question is he fantasy worthy?
So this is a good question, right? He's a guy that for years, he was kind of like that steady guy. He had a couple, people would draft him, their second quarterback sometimes. There's a few years there where he was there, he was up in that top 10, big quarterback.
Yeah.
But then receivers started falling off, and the offensive line, and they're rebuilding and all of these things. That guy can still sling the ball. I mean, he just had nobody to throw it to last year, with
Ridley gone.
Well, he was having problems even when Julio and Ridley were there together, which I think was not necessarily his problem. I think it was an offensive problem. Todd Gurley wasn't the same guy.
I would agree with that. And last year he was getting Pitts the ball. So first of all, he's missed 5 games in his career.
That is incredible. I never knew that. That is insane.
37 years old. Yeah. That's amazing. He's got, I went through some stats just to kind of, look at his career and see what he's done. He's averaged 7.5 yards per attempt over his career. That's good. I think that's very good. He averages about the mid-20s in touchdowns a year. He's had some higher, he's had a few lower, but you're going to get what you're going to get with him. I don't know that going to Indy is going to make him go to 40, right?
Because that's Jonathan Taylor's team. Let's just be honest.
Right, but that makes it even more attractive for a quarterback who knows every defense that you put in front of him. He can read a defense. He has seen it all. Now you give him a running back,
but you also give him a line. The past 4 years, he's had 40 or more sacks a year.
Yeah,
this guy's running for his life, right? Indy actually has a top 10 to 15 ranked offensive line at the moment, right? You're going to look around, you're going to see different ranks. They're in that 10 to 15 range. So that's the top half of the league. So that's very good. You got a running game, so you can't have the linebackers crashing in on him all the time. You give this guy time, and he's going to get the ball to those receivers. I don't know. He's got.
You're not going to have. Look, you're not going to have 2012 Matt Ryan, right? You're not going to have the Matty Ice that.
No. But look, Wentz had 27 touchdowns in that offense last year, and most of the time he was terrible.
Right.
And he only had 7 interceptions. But you got, look at the guys he gets. Pittman, who came on really strong last year and was looking really good. Right. Now, obviously, you have Taylor, and he can also catch the ball. Then you got Hines. He can catch the ball. You have these running backs that are true,
good out of the backfield. Yeah.
Pass receivers. You got Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, the rookie from Cincy. They're pretty high on him. And then you got Mo Alley Cox. So you put all that together, and I think you're giving him an opportunity to be. And I don't think anybody's taken Matt Ryan as their number 1 quarterback in a 10-person league, even a 12-person league. When you get into 14 to 16-person leagues, he's right on that edge, right? Right now he's ranked around 20th, but he could go over, somebody like Trey Lance, who's above him, or Trevor Lawrence, who's above him. You're going to get that stability with him.
I can't even imagine drafting Trevor Lawrence ahead of Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I can't do that either. I mean, I don't really think we're talking about Matt Ryan and his fantasy relevance as a quarterback, because let's be honest, he's probably not going to be drafted unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. But you just talked about Michael Pittman. I see a progression for him. I see. I even see more.
For
Matt
Pittman?
in his last 2-3 years has been doing a lot more checking down. I see Jonathan Taylor getting a lot more grabs.
But you got to think about, he hasn't had a line. He's had a check down. He hasn't had the time.
For the Kamish said it. We have Matt Ryan was one of the most consistent quarterbacks that you can get over the first 10, 12, 13 years of his career. The last 3 or 4 years, he goes on these streaks, but then he goes on these streaks where he'll disappear for 5, 6, 7 games. And this is not just the last couple of years. This is when he had Julio and Ridley there together. And Hooper, who was a revelation, for him in Atlanta there. So I don't see him resurging as much as I think you might be thinking. Definitely not fantasy relevant as a QB starting fantasy option, but I see the receivers there getting a major lift.
All right, so let me ask you a question. You got quarterback 19. I'm looking at some rankings on one of the sites, right? We all have our rankings. You have Trevor Lawrence at 19 and Matt Ryan at 20. Who do you see by the end of the year is going to have overall more points?
Matt Ryan, sure, of course. That's ridiculous. Some of the rankings are crazy that I've seen.
And Tua is only one ahead of them.
Yeah. So, some of the rankings, Fantasy Pros ranking of top 10 quarterbacks was terrible to me, if you ask me. But no, of course not. I don't think I agree with you.
Okay, so let's talk about our one of the most controversial quarterback moves in free agency, and that's the Browns acquiring Desean Watson for the following: a 2002 first round, 2023 first round, 2024 first round, 2023 third round, 2022 fourth round, 2024 fourth round, and they gave his ass $230 million guaranteed. A 5-year deal, guaranteed. And that is guaranteeing $230 million for an alleged sexual predator who is now facing, after today, it was 23 now. Another lawsuit filed. 23
What's one more?
Right.
Active civil lawsuits alleging sexual assault and misconduct. And even though Watson said he's innocent, I do expect the NFL discipline to come in. I mean, for the NFL to conclude that nothing happened, yet there's 23 active civil suits, that's going to be difficult. That's going to be interesting to see. But let's take all that off the field and talk about Desean Watson, the player. There's no denying he is a top-tier player, right? When everyone was talking about when the idea of Desean Watson coming to Miami, there was so much controversy around that. And I was saying, I'm on Team Tua, but you can't deny that Watson is a top-tier talent. He is definitely, in Cleveland, an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. I don't think there's a question about it.
Yeah.
Back in 2020, the last year he played a full season, he threw 33 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. But at the same time, guys, he was asked to throw the ball 35 to 40 times a game.
Right.
And to contrast that with Baker only threw it 24 times a game.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big difference. Houston was always playing from behind. With the Browns, we don't know. It should be interesting. The Browns have a
great defense, right? Yeah.
Right. So, strictly from a fantasy perspective, I personally do not feel comfortable with the idea of drafting Desean Watson because of the possible suspension. If he's not suspended, if the NFL in the summer, before the season starts, comes out and says, we are not going to suspend him, or even if they say we're not going to make a decision, and like Brad was talking about last week, we're not going to make a decision until next year, he's a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. I'm drafting him as a top 5 quarterback.
But let's use that word drafting carefully, because we're in the 16th round. We already have our kicker and defense. Would I draft Watson there? Yeah, of course.
A backup? So as we're talking about this, hang on, slow
that's a good
down.
question.
We actually have we have a few comments here. Travis, who thanks for coming back, Travis. He says he's giving an auto draft. Let's see. I got to get this on. Sorry, it's a new.
So he's given auto draft deck. Everyone can see it. It's scrolling on the right. So Travis.
Oh, they can see that. Okay. So Campbell
he's giving
asked,
auto draft another shot again this year.
It works.
Now, but
That
Campbell
worked for you last year, right, Travis?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And
But Campbell asks, I know the buzz can get philosophical sometimes, irrespective of this
his
actual fantasy
value. Would any
value
of
of
you
his
refuse to have
fantasy.
Watson on your team due to your
Right.
own moral reasons? And
Right.
Campbell, I know Campbell. I love Campbell. I think that's a great question.
It is.
And it is an issue that concerned me when the Miami Dolphins were thinking of taking him. And it wasn't just because of Tua, but did we want to be the franchise that took on an alleged sexual predator, a sexual abuser?
And this has happened for years.
It happens for years, but does it make it right?
Can't validate it though.
Well, but would any of us not taken Kareem Hunt on our team?
Yes.
Or Ray Rice if he came back?
I would not.
Ray Rice,
I would not.
All right, so where do you cross the line? Not them, but what happens with Watson?
I don't know. Watson's a tough one.
It'd be half the
I'm not
league
saying-
if you get moral.
Watson's a tough one because it was because for whatever reason they did not feel that there was enough to charge him criminally, right? But the same thing happened with OJ. So I think it's a great question, and there are Dolphins that have done things that I refuse to even follow on Twitter now. Randy McMichael, for example, with domestic abuse. I mean, there are people that I don't look at the same because of the things that they've done. And Campbell, I'm going to throw it back out at you. Would you refuse to have Watson on your team? Yes or no? And where do you draw the line? Is it whether somebody is criminally implicated, civilly implicated? I mean, these are big questions. I know Campbell is either in law school or a lawyer at this point. I'm very curious.
So basically, you're asking, is there an NDL
fantasy team or your NFL team? Like, we're Dolphin fans. Are you asking specifically? Would we
He's
want
talking
to
about
play?
fantasy? He's talking about
He
fantasy.
is talking about fantasy.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
so what are you proposing, Campbell, to have like an NDL, like a non-draft list for your league, like players that have done this or done that, and nobody takes them? I mean,
But just like in the NFL, if you don't take them, your opponent will.
That's right.
And I remember
exactly. That's
the
like
Dolphins
saying
talking
you're not going to
about,
take Tiger Woods on your fantasy golf team, because of what he did.
Right.
Well,
Maybe not.
I think that was adultery, right? That wasn't.
Right.
I mean, am I missing something here?
Yeah, but let's talk like what Michael Vick.
That's okay.
Well, Michael Vick.
Adultery? Yeah, adultery is a sin between two adults. It is not right. It is not sexually. It is not sexual misconduct. It is not abusing somebody.
Right. It's not abuse. Yeah. Well, it can be, but to talk about something like a Michael Vick, for example, like you just said, someone else is going to take him, and it still blows my mind that this guy was able to play football again. The stories that came out and what he did, and not only did he play football, he had that 1 year in Philadelphia where he absolutely tore it up.
Right, but he also paid his debt to society. Does that matter? Right? He went to jail. He spent the time in jail. He came out rehabilitated, supposedly. Is there forgiveness for people that have gone to jail for their sins? I mean, it's a great question, and this question first came up. Do you all remember Ray Carruth? He was the wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers, and Ray Carruth actually murdered his wife's his girlfriend. Yeah, it was. I didn't know if he was married and it was his girlfriend, but it was his girlfriend, and she was pregnant at the time, and they found him. He was hiding in the trunk of a car like a coward, and he ended up going to jail, and he's still in prison. I think he's still in prison.
Yeah.
The point is that at that time we were all talking about, when do you decide enough is enough? When do you decide that the crime is so egregious? Because obviously you would not pick up Ray Carruth if he was let go on probation. You wouldn't pick him up, would you? Because it was murder.
Right.
You know, is there a line? We're back to Brad. You asked that question. What is the line? Where are you drawing that line? So Campbell, it's a great question, and you know, we could probably spend a whole show talking about it. I'm curious what you think, and I really do
It is a
appreciate
fair question, and it's, you know, there's people I won't draft because they've screwed me in the past, so that's a crime in itself. But you know, there's people
I love his response. He said, "Oh, geez, not proposing a not draft lift. Just totally personal decision." It's a great question. Back to me. So he says, "Of course, I've had Tyreek Hill and Adrian Peterson. Both were, you know, indicted on abuse
on the Dolphins now.
My team, but you know, maybe this has just brought greater awareness to people like us taking a stand, even though it may have no impact." I got to tell you, I really like this guy. Very, very thoughtful, very insightful, and you know, the game sometimes transcends just what we love in sports because, you know, something, these people are on a bigger stage and these are our heroes, and kids look up to these people, look up to these people, and you want them to hold to certain standards. So I happen to agree. I mean, I'm not saying I have
basically the bottom line comes to it is if you're a fantasy player, you have to be soulless and just take the players that are going to help you win.
Nice. Okay. On that note, let's move on to our next quarterback.
All right. So the
Great
next
question, Campbell.
Thank you, Campbell. We appreciate the comments. And of course, anybody can always call us 772-800-BUZZ or comment on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube Live, and we will get right to your question. The next quarterback I want to talk about, guys, is Jameis Winston. Now, may not be a big deal, but the question that I have is Winston a quarterback 1 or a quarterback 2 on your team? Can he carry your team as your starting quarterback? Or do you have him as a backup in the event your QB1 gets hurt?
So I took Jameis, and you know, this is a very big question mark. You know, are you going to get Jameis? You know, back what was it? It was 2019 where he went bananas for 5,100 yards and 33 touchdowns, or are we getting what we've been seeing? You know, I mean. I mean, the New Orleans Saints thought so much of him that they were riding Taysom Hill, who is, you know, a borderline running back, tight end, quarterback, and we saw it. I mean, he wasn't. You know, it's interesting. He wasn't the air it out Jameis Winston that we know, who will give you 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in the same game, give you great fantasy numbers, but lose the game for you. Last year, he played 7 games. Had a very good quarterback rating of 102 and change. Excuse me, put up 14 touchdowns and 3 picks. The problem is, and granted, it's going to look a little different now in New Orleans with Peyton gone, but he wasn't doing that much. He dropped back 161 times and only threw for 1,100 yards. So my point is this: I don't think there's any doubt or question about the talent that he has. I don't want to say once has. I still think he has it. And he's the kind of guy, he's like a Fitzpatrick. He loves to air it out. He will go deep and go for his receivers. I just don't know. I don't know how it's going to look in this system with the new coaching regime, how Thomas is going to look coming back. They really don't have much in the way of receiving there right now. You know, Thomas has not been healthy. So this to me is a very big question mark. I would not rely on him as a QB1. I would be very concerned about the receivers that you'd be drafting on New Orleans until, like what you said, I'd like to see the preseason and the workouts and really study and see what's going on there before I made any moves towards New Orleans.
So here's my thoughts on Winston. He's going to be that quarterback, right? That it's just going to fall. No one's going to want to take him, right? Who's going to take him? If Michael Thomas is healthy, you throw Jarvis Landry in there. You have Alvin Kamara, who is a very good pass catcher, and then you have a rookie, and you have Trout. It's nothing overly exciting except for Landry and Thomas, but you throw it. You take Marquez Callaway and you take Traquan Smith, who were doing fairly well filling in last year, and make them the 3rd and 4th receiver, not the 1 and 2. You have something on the field. Right, you have a little bit more firepower. Winston, we know he can chuck the ball. I think that what you saw out of Winston last year was a it was part of that offense.
Year.
It was how that offense was being run. It wasn't they were handcuffing him for sure, right? They were afraid, but they didn't have a lot on the field to go to. So he's going to be that quarterback that you're like, you know what? I'm just going to take Winston here on a flyer. And all of a sudden he's going to, he could, the first couple of weeks, I haven't looked at their schedule, all of a sudden he could have, 360 and 3 touchdowns in week 1, and everyone's going to be scrambling for him. But you don't know. It's a huge question mark.
It's a big question mark. And then how many plays a game is Taysom Hill going to come in, who actually did a really decent job last year?
Well, that's see, but this is where I think we might be deceived on what Jameis Winston did last year. That offense, even though it was still Sean Payton was in disarray, and it was what I call the Bill Cowher / issue, right? Because when they drafted Cordell Stewart in Pittsburgh, and they had who was it? Mike Tomczak, Neil O'Donnell, Jim Miller, and they kept switching these quarterbacks in and out. And you never knew if Cordell Stewart was going to, who was going to be quarterback, and they thought, oh, that was great. You've got to get this guy into the game. Well, they were doing the same thing with Taysom Hill. And I don't know what the practices look like in New Orleans. I don't know if Winston got enough reps. I don't know if the offense was built around Hill and not Winston. But I think it's going to be different this year because I don't think the new coach is going to come in. And I'm missing the name of the coach right now off the top of my head. But I don't think he's going to come in and all of a sudden run that same type of offense where Taysom Hill at any given moment is going to come in. I think there was something over the summer, and I know Travis, I guess you're a New Orleans fan. I'm not sure, but
I was going to say,
but I think I read something about Taysom Hill being told you're now a tight end. Like, I don't think there's a question now that he's not going to be a quarterback on that team. And if that's the case, it is Jameis Winston's show. And if you do not have -2 points for interceptions, I have no problem picking up Jameis Winston.
Right.
And as far as QB 1 or 2, I'm going to wait on my quarterback, right? And if I keep waiting and all the good ones are gone, and I still need a QB1, I don't have a problem with Jameis Winston. But
as
again,
your QB1?
Again, only if everyone else, that I might be taking as a QB1 is gone. But depending on how things go this summer, I may not have a problem. I'm not suggesting you go out and grab him as a QB1. Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Travis is our resident cheesehead. I forgot about that.
Right now, Jameis Winston in this ranking that I'm looking at is 22. So he's right in that Lawrence, Ryan,
right,
Winston, and then Tannehill thrown in there, right in that, late teens, early 20s. So,
yeah, the problem there is there's so many question marks. Is Michael Thomas healthy? What is this offense going to look like with this new head coach and the new offense?
He's healthy. If Michael Thomas is healthy and you have Jarvis Landry, I mean,
game changer. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Why would we? We're talking about Matt Ryan. We're talking about people who may succeed because of their weapons.
Right.
Kamara, though, he's going to be most likely going to be suspended for the first few games. We don't know yet for sure.
Who is that?
Alvin Kamara.
Oh, Kamara. Yeah.
So, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But remember the yak on Alvin Kamara.
Right.
So those are all quarterback points.
I mean, look, Patrick Mahomes has questions there, but you're not going to drop him out of the top 5 in quarterbacks.
He's such a talent. Andy Reid is just a genius. That even without Tyreek, he still has Kelce.
We'll see.
Yeah, he's got Juju. He's got Mecole and DeMarcus.
So guys, can we talk about this for a second? I know that it's not one of the free agent moves. But where do you see Mahomes as far as how he compares to last year? Do you think he's going to have a regression without Tyreek Hill? Or does he stay the same? Or does he get better?
He may get better, but it's so hard. There, I'm trying to look up his game log from last year. If I remember correctly, there were a few games at the beginning of last year. No, I guess not. I guess it was middle of the season where he went, where he didn't have a few very good games. He had a 206, no touchdowns. He had a 267, 263. No, he actually had a very good year, I guess.
He did have a good year, but there was a couple. He had like a
166 and one touchdown.
Yeah.
So not. I thought for some reason it was sticking out in my and a 184, no touchdown.
Right.
So that was a few weeks during the middle of the season.
Keith, you had put together a preliminary list of quarterbacks right now. Where do you have Mahomes?
I still have him up there. I don't have him to me, Josh Allen, he has proven to be the number one fantasy quarterback. But then I have Mahomes third behind. To me, I have, believe it or not, Matt Stafford at number 2 with 5,200 yards and 48 touchdowns and only another threat. But I still have Mahomes up there as top 3. I know you have Herbert and Burrow and people, but Mahomes is that kind of guy in that Andy Reid offense that is still going to he's going to throw a ton. And I know he lost Tyreek Hill, but he still got his main man, Travis. I still have him as top 2, 3, 4 up there. Absolutely.
So he had, out of 17 games last year, 37 touchdown passes. 5 of those games, he had 0 or 1. Almost.
Well, what happened is they started
0 or 1 touchdown pass, which means a third of the season he's not consistent. That's not a great consistent number to have.
Defenses caught on and started playing that 2 deep cover, and they were not able to do what they wanted to do. Then they started running the ball, and they started doing more Kelsey over the middle, bringing Tyreek Hill just 2 yards off the line of scrimmage, and they started getting back to putting up good numbers again. So they got figured out for a little bit, but Reid, probably arguably one of the top 5 coaches to me of all time, figured it out, and I don't see that being a problem. I just see Patrick Mahomes is a baller, and he's got the QB, he's got the QB head, he's got the moves, he's got the arms, and he still has a ton.
He is, for sure. He's probably the best talent of QB as far as physical ability right now in the league. I mean, his throws that he can make, his agility. Yeah, I mean,
Josh
Allen
Allen
has it too, but Rodgers is pushing 40.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Not as exciting as Patrick Mahomes, but in 2019, guys, this guy threw for over 4,000 yards, and his starting wide receivers were Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson and Nelson Aguilar. So, I mean, what do you do with Carson Wentz now? I mean, they finally have a quarterback who, he's had some really bad games, but he can sling it, right? I mean,
he can throw.
Yeah, I mean, look, he had, like I said before, he was 27-7 TD to interception ratio last year. That's not bad with a lot of guys in and out of the lineup, right? None of those receivers in Indy ever seem to stay healthy. The question is, does he even start for the Commanders? Right, you got Taylor Heineke there, who was coming on at the end of last year, and they brought Wentz in to play. I understand
Wentz
that, or
started.
to be that veteran.
Wentz started. That's not a question.
What was that?
He's got some weapons
Wentz
there.
Starting. The question is whether or not you would start him.
You know,
you have him on your fantasy.
He very quietly had not a terrible year in Indy. It wasn't fantastic, and he couldn't get him to the promised land. But 27-10 ain't bad. And he's another year back from not being injured with more confidence. And I love Logan Thomas. I like Scary Terry. I can't believe I'm blanking on the other receiver there. That's actually pretty good that came on.
Curtis Samuel.
Yes, thank you. Really, yeah, Curtis Samuel was fantastic, little Swiss Army knife. So I think Wentz could have a really decent year. I don't see him top 10. I see him just on the outskirt of that.
What do you think, Brad?
So, I think one of the issues there is, well, first of all, a good thing there is that they have an O-line there. Indy's O-line was pretty good. Washington's is even better, right? So he always seemed to be running for his life and just scared, and so a lot of times just getting rid of the ball is what it seemed like. And he still only had 7 interceptions, which it seemed like it was more. What I think people have a bad taste right now for him is he kind of disappeared when people needed him late in the season, and he had a couple bad games when people are trying to get into the playoffs. So fantasy wise, he kind of disappeared there. which was tough for people if they were starting him, because I think he was a good starter as a streamer, to get a guy on your roster that's going to get you some yards. And then he had a couple bad weeks. But like you were just talking about, they've got McLaurin, they've got Samuel, they have Gibson in the back, and they have the other running back,
J.D. McKissick,
right? Who obviously is their third down back or their catching running back.
He was going to sign. He wasn't going to sign. He was going to be. That was.
And one of the
bottom line is you put him. I put him in the same boat as Winston, where someone's going to take a flyer on him, and he's going to be 270 a game, 2 touchdowns. He'll have a couple bump ups. He'll have a couple a little bit lower, but that's about what you're going to get from him, is what I see. And is it exciting? No. Is it good for when you need a streamer and need somebody to get you some points? Yeah.
I think the real question is, because Carson Wentz looking at Carson Wentz as really their QB1. Maybe he falls. The real question is, what does this do to McLaurin, Samuel, and Thomas's value? I don't know. Samuel is an outskirt, maybe a wide receiver 3, but does this help Scary Terry going from Taylor Heineke throwing him the ball to Carson Wentz, a 27 touchdown kind of guy, and Logan Thomas might take? Is there a progression there for these two?
So before we answer that, I'm going to give you his stats from 15, 16, 17, and 18 of last year.
Quickly.
You had 57 yards, 1 touchdown. That was the game I think people think about it. Like, it was against New England, and he was awful. And then he had 225 and 2 touchdowns. Okay. 148 and a touchdown, 185 and a touchdown. So if you had him and he was doing well for you before that, even though he had a couple lapses earlier, week 10 and 11, if you for some reason had him on your roster and you were starting him, he let you down in those weeks when maybe you were looking for something. And that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, so he's going to drop. Yeah, I mean, those receivers are going to have a bump. Go ahead, Commish.
Almost just like Wentz, Ryan, like Finkel, Einhorn, like, because what we're doing is, right, we were saying, Wentz was okay in Indy, and then we were talking about Matt Ryan, and we're like, oh, he's got all these weapons. He's going to have Taylor. He's going to have a line. He's going to have, well, why didn't all that hold true for Carson Wentz? And I know Wentz is not and has never been as good as Matt Ryan. I get it. But are we going to say that we're going to see a different Carson Wentz in Washington that we did in Indy, when Indy had all those tools as well? That we're now saying that Matt Ryan is going to not necessarily thrive, but do better. And I mean, I don't know. First of all, Wentz scares me, and to be in the league as long as he has and only have 1 year of true success,
right,
I can't trust him at all.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I would have him as a QB2.
No, and I agree, but I think he does give a bump to McLaurin. I think McLaurin's numbers should look a little better. I really do.
Well, they were awful last year. So,
right.
Well, the first half of the year they were really. Didn't he come on a little bit in the second half of the year?
He started coming on, but I see him going in a forward direction.
All right, running out of time. Let's talk about Mitch Trabitsky real quick. I mean, this is really interesting. What's going to happen? Well, the question is not do we care, right? The question is what's going to happen in Pittsburgh.
Right. I think it's pretty obvious to most people that Trabisky is, he's just keeping the seat warm,
right,
at this point for Pickett,
right?
He's Pickett's from that area. He gets drafted. I mean, everyone's going to want to see him. They have receivers there. They lost Juju, but they have Deontay Johnson. They have Claypool. They have Freiermuth, who had a very good year last year.
Really came on, yeah.
They obviously have a running back there in Harris. So they have weapons around them. The question is, he doesn't put up bad numbers. Like, he doesn't have bad career numbers. He's not exciting. Kind of like Wentz. If you look at Trubisky's career numbers, they're not terrible.
They're not great.
They're not great. No, they're not exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in Chicago, which was a mess.
Yeah.
When he was there, he was in Buffalo where he didn't play because of Josh Allen. So I don't know. I just think there's other quarterbacks that we've said today that Like I take Matt Ryan before I take Trubisky.
Oh yeah, of course.
I take some of these other guys. He's a stopgap right now until Pickett can play.
Another stopgap is Marcus Mariota. I don't think he's draft worthy. Here's another guy that is really just a stopgap. They say he signed a 2-year contract, but it's really just a 1-year contract with an option. So he's there to fill in until the Falcons find a trade or sign a new guy or draft somebody. And who's he throwing to, right? Is it Drake London? Is it Delamade Zacchaeus? Is it Brian Edwards? Yes, we know he's throwing to Kyle Pitts, but he's going to be quadruple covered because nobody needs to cover the other guys. So the bottom line is don't draft him. Matt Ryan was on waivers in most leagues for most of the 2021 season. So why would you grab a guy who's even worse than Matt Ryan?
Right.
He's like that guy who's you pick him up and then you drop him. Someone else picks him up, they drop him.
Going back to Trubisky, I think it's going to be interesting to see in the preseason how well Pickett does. And you might have a situation where if Pickett looks good and he's grasping the offense, where he might come out and start.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's got to know, just like everybody else knows, that he's there. He's buying time. He's collecting a paycheck there until Pickett starts, for sure.
Yeah. Staying on quarterbacks, and again, not a guy that moved, but had one of the most integral pieces of an offense move is what does Davante Adams' departure do to Aaron Rodgers? Do we see a regression there? Rodgers is just as consistent is. He's got Lazard, lost MVS. So what do you?
That's why I was a little curious about your list, Keith, because you actually have Rodgers ranked higher than he finished last year with Davante Adams. Mm-hmm. So, and MVS. So I agree that I think he's going to regress. I think he is still a QB1, but I don't have him nearly as high as you do. But again, we're talking about May 31st.
Right.
So I can't, you can't really make a list at this point.
I mean, right now their starting wide receivers are Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins and Alan Lazard. Hardly a perfect trio.
And
something in the few games that Adams was hurt, Rodgers, I still think, and I want to look up those games. I kind of remember him still putting up 2 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, but to get into some games that you're missing your star player, a couple games here and there. Yeah, you can still get things done. Take him out of the equation altogether. It's a totally different.
I don't know. Rodgers has a Brady-esque quality. He really does.
You mean Brady has a Rodgers-esque quality?
However you want to say it, but for years Brady was winning with no David Patton and Troy Brown and putting up the numbers. So
that was because of cheating.
Because he cheated.
Us as Dolphin fans would like to always think and say that. But Rodgers is the kind of guy that's going to eat, and he's always going to get his because he is arguably the smartest quarterback in the game. A lot of these
later on. Smartest football IQ, right? Because outside of football, the guy is a freaking idiot. Okay, so
I think we need a bet on this one. I say Rodgers ends out of the top 10 in quarterbacks this year.
Okay, I'll take that bet. Fantasy points, standard scoring fantasy points.
I think he'll be like 8, 9, or 10.
So you're taking it. Okay, got it.
I think he'll be in the top 10. I don't think he's going to be lower than 10. Okay, so all that being said, we are done for the night. Join us next Monday night on The Buzz. We are going to answer more of your fantasy football questions. And as the summer goes on, we're going to get we're going to have a little more depth into each team and each position and try to start helping you build our lists rather than just coming out and saying, here's our top QBs. We'll actually talk about it and start building it together so that by the end of the summer, the Buzz will have created a list with input from our fans. So we really do appreciate it.
when is the first day of camps? Isn't it usually like June 28th?
Beginning of July, I believe, but it might be.
Cut like some of them
different
start.
from every.
So they're a little bit different, right? So we have
Right.
about a month.
Right.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting. We might even do a show from the Dolphin training camp. That would be a fun show.
I like it.
So we'll talk about it. In the meantime, guys, thanks so much. We really appreciate Travis and Campbell and Javi and Steve. Thank you so much for all of your comments tonight. We really appreciate you listening and joining the show. Guys, any final words?
Nope, just 100 days.
That's it. Count them down.
All right.